And finally, we go to Taittinger, whose winemaker, and we're going to scrub, presumably, that the early votes for wine 15. So we've got Comtes de Champagne 06, which is the current vintage, 100% Chardonnay, and vintage 09, which we've tasted before from courtesy of Moët and Dom Pérignon. And they are apparently already about to move on to 12, which we didn't taste in Champagne, but I tasted in London, which had a little bit of sweetness to me, so perhaps that might be a clue. So we shall see. And it will be a difference between an all Chardonnay and a blend, and the difference between an older vintage, 06, and that ripe, round, fruity 09 of the vintage. So perhaps we will end on a note which might be easier to discern than some of the pairs that we've had up to now. But I do think up to now that the vintage wines have shown really pretty well, especially when you take into consideration the price differences. So I think all I'd like to say is tonight has not been a total waste of time. Yeah.
You say about the 2008 vintage, which everyone's getting really excited about. You described it as like backseat earlier on.
Yes. Why? Well, 08 seemed, such 08s as I've tasted so far seemed to be pretty smart. And it wasn't a particularly easy growing season until it settled into the high summer, and August and September just were, what you wanted, and no excess rain, and all nice and warm and dry. And I think the must came in at just about the right kind of balance. And that's, the Champenois nowadays are feeling a little tense about their acid levels, and they were a little bit low, for instance, in 09, but in 08, they were happy with them. And we are conveniently moving on to a house that sees that perhaps this country has something to offer, having rather publicly invested in a Kent vineyard, and is said not to be the only famous champagne house to be investing in British soil. Many years after the Daily Mail and the Daily Mirror said that they were going to, but that's by the by. So we shall see. But I think we can be proud of the quality of English sparkling wine. That's going to be your next one, Nick. It's going to be blind. Champagne versus English. I don't know.
I just wanted to share the results quickly of who's scoring really well. So we've still got one person with all of them right, and then a bunch of you with just 2 wrong. So the pressure's all on. For me, it's easier if the person that's winning stays winning, but let's see.
Mainly
so 15 is a Taittinger, 09.
Yeah.
So that means 16 is Comtes.
I think the room has been right, hasn't it, in every single case. And the 16 was the Comte, 06. The 09 in Magnum was 50% of each of Pinot Noir Chardonnay. Dosage 9 grams per litre, disgorged May 2016. Only 4 years on these. And Comte, 06, obviously 100% Chardonnay. Dosage again 9 grams per litre, disgorged March 2015, and 9 years on the lees. So the favourite wine of the room was the Cristal. And then the Comte, which did very well in another tasting here, didn't it? Of the non-prestiges, the Pol 08 did really well, and Roederer 09 did really well. Is it, I don't know, do people get a bit more generous with their points as the time? Maybe of the prestige cuvées, perhaps the Clos Lanson did least well. But then it was the first vintage, and who knows what they will do because they're in a sort of state of flux. There we go. So Roederer 09 did brilliantly well for a non-prestige cuvée, as did Pol. Bollinger 07 did pretty well. And this, look at this, they're all the same score. Laurent Perrier 07 also did very well. If one were to do this in 5 years' time, Lanson to be moving up the ranks. Dom Pérignon 09, the Moët and the Dom Pérignons maybe didn't do that well, but it was quite early on. So, no, I think definitely worth doing because it really showed that some of the vintage wines showed very, very well. So, I hope, does anybody want to add anything from the floor?
Which would be the best for keeping?
Crystal, but no one will keep it. Not sure that Churchill is a long, I don't know, long, I don't know. You shouldn't keep Grand Siècle, as we know. Going down there. And there's no point in keeping Blanc de Millénaires.
It's got to be Cristal to keep.
Maybe, yeah. Dom, I think, is not going to fall off its perch and is a bit young when we've tasted it. But that we in Britain have this thing about keeping wine generally, don't we? Whereas the Champenois, I think, when we release it, it's pretty much ready. So there's a slight dichotomy there. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I haven't got my glasses on as usual, so what I wanted to do tonight was just kind of put out there the vintage champagnes are potentially really good value. So that was my sort of look into this, and I think what we've shown is some of the vintages have shown incredibly well. And I don't think any of them has really disgraced themselves at all, and this is always the issue. So just because they've come bottom isn't really that bad. But it does kind of give us a little bit of insight into some of the vintages that are showing incredibly well. So 08s and 09s are certainly wowing everybody at the moment. So I think what we set out to achieve has kind of given us some pretty good results, actually. So it's, as I said, right at the beginning, you can spend £60, £70 on the vintage champagnes, and the prestige cuvées are generally 130 to 170. So what I wanted to try and show is that they don't disgrace themselves, and actually, I think a few of them have given the prestige cuvées a bit of a run for their money.
I purposely didn't put Krug in tonight because there isn't, for me, a big enough differential in the pricing. So Krug,
nor expressed in the quality.
Yeah.
I mean, their whole thing is we make vintage, we make Grand Cuvée, and they're the same standard. So there wouldn't.
So Grand Cuvée, their non-vintage accumulation of vintages is £130. So for that reason, we decided not to do it. So, but there's lots of different. Yeah.
This is just the beginning.
So, shall we do who got all of them right? I think you've done brilliantly, to be honest. So, we're going to send you all one.
Could we ask
which of, because you've got only one pair wrong, which was the one you got wrong?
I think it was the first one.
That's one.
Crystal.
Crystal, and because they were both so good, weren't they? Yeah. And which was the one you got wrong? No, I don't want to. I think you've done brilliantly. Yeah, really, really good.
Well, tonight wouldn't have been tonight without all of you, so thank you very much for coming along tonight. And it also wouldn't have been tonight without having been guided, so...
Well, you just need someone to get it wrong.
And because I nearly always forget doing these things, I'm not going to forget this year. Chris, the team who have managed to pour us 16 champagnes and keep up with the raising of the hands and the eyebrows, I think have done brilliantly. So we should have a big thank you to the team at £67. So, thank you very much, because I've been behind the scenes and it's incredibly cramped. And you just brought out 56 times 16, whoever's good at maths. So thank you, you have done a brilliant job. And I'm going to just say, in a year's time, we may have another brilliant challenge. I haven't yet got it in my head, so feel free to talk to me about it. And I hope, Jancis, it's a brilliant enough idea for you to want to engage with it. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy anything that's left.
Well done.